Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 10 2024 NFL predictions. Well, for the Fanatic last week, it was another positive week in terms of both my against the spread and straight up predictions. So it was a little bit of a disappointment with my against the spread picks. I did not get double digits against the spread. I did not mirror my against the spread and straight up picks correspondingly. So last week against the spread, I went 8-6-1. The one push was the New England-Tennessee game. I had New England +3. The Tennessee Titans won by 3, so that was the push there. And straight up, I went 12-3. So to get 56.7% against the spread and 12-3, 80% straight up, which is fantastic. My only 3 losses were the 1-point loss from the Saints-Panthers, the Texans-Jets game, which nobody really expected, and even though I guess besides Vegas, because the Jets were 2-point favorites, which was stunning to me and a lot of other people, but that's why Vegas knows what they do, and that's why they have all the money. And then, of course, the Pats-Titans game, which went into overtime, that I could argue, I will admit that game really shouldn't even have gotten to overtime in the first place if it wasn't for Drake May's crazy play in the at the end of the game to that touchdown to Ramondre Stevenson. So now overall for the year, through 138 games, I'm now 70-64-4 against the spread, which is 52.2%. And straight up now, I am 92-46, a 46 rate. Fortunately for me, with that, it evens out times 3 in that regard. So there's a literal perfectly 2-to-1 ratio, which equals 66.7%. So definitely one of the better years I've had past the halfway point of the 2024 NFL season. I'm incredibly happy to be at this spot, both against the spread and straight up. I don't know if I'll be able to maintain my against the spread record of being above 500. This is probably the highest amount of games I've been above 500 with as many games to go moving forward. But there are plenty of games to go. And then we have 2 14-game weeks this week, the next 2 weeks. So it's a little bit more of a thinner margin, but I am excited that we are in this position now to be confident to get these predictions hopefully correct. Should be a fantastic week, though. Then want to say, though, real quick, this is going to be a bit of a shorter video just because of what time it is and how much time I have to go do some things quickly. So I will promise everybody next week's video will be a longer form video on Veterans Day. I have that day off, and I will be able to do a full, long-term traditional video this coming Monday. So I did want to say real quickly, the buys this week, the Browns, the Packers, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Seattle Seahawks all have buys this week. So if you have Nick Chubb, if you have the Browns defense, if you have Dustin Hopkins, Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, Romeo Dobbs, Packers defense, Alexander Madison, Brock Bowers, Trey Tucker, Daniel Carlson, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Kenneth Walker, Geno Smith, Jason Myers. If you have any of those players on your fantasy teams, bench them because they will not be playing this weekend. So let me get through the picks very quickly. So on Thursday, when the 4-5 Cincinnati Bengals travel to Baltimore to take on the 6-3 Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens are 6-point favorites in this game. Give me Baltimore here, -6, and Baltimore straight up. Then the next game, when in the final international series game, when the 2-7 New York Giants play the Carolina Panthers in Munich, the 2-7 Carolina Panthers, in a battle of probably the winner of this game is the team that's going to lose this game. In the battle of 2-7s, the New York Giants are 4.5-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take the New York Giants here straight up, but give me Carolina +4.5. Then the next game, when the 2-7 New England Patriots travel to Chicago to take on the 4-4 Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears are 6.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Chicago here, -6.5, and Chicago straight up. Then the next game, when the 7-2 Buffalo Bills travel to Indianapolis to take on the 4-5 Indianapolis Colts. The Buffalo Bills are 4-point favorites in this game. Give me Buffalo here, -4, and Buffalo straight up. Then the next game, an AFC West battle, when the 5-4 Denver Broncos travel to the 8-0 Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are 9.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Denver here, +9.5. then I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-3 Atlanta Falcons travel to New Orleans to take on the 2-7 New Orleans Saints. The Atlanta Falcons are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me Atlanta here, -3, and Atlanta straight up. Then the next game, when the 4-4 San Francisco 49ers travel to Tampa Bay to take on the 4-5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 6.5-point underdogs in this game. Give me Tampa Bay here, +6.5, but I'm going to take San Francisco straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-2 Pittsburgh Steelers travel to Washington in the game of the weekend to take on the 7-2 Washington Commanders. The Washington Commanders are 2.5-point favorites in this game. In a slight upset here, my slight outright upset, I'm going to take Pittsburgh here, +2.5, and Pittsburgh straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-2 Minnesota Vikings travel to Jacksonville to take on the 2-7 Jacksonville Jaguars. The Minnesota Vikings are 4-point favorites in this game. Give me Minnesota here, -4, and Minnesota straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-6 Tennessee Titans travel to Los Angeles to take on the 5-3 Los Angeles Chargers. Los Angeles Chargers are 7.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Los Angeles here, -7.5, and Los Angeles straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-2 Philadelphia Eagles travel to Dallas to take on the 3-5 Dallas Cowboys. The Philadelphia Eagles are 7.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Philadelphia here, -7.5, and Philadelphia straight up. Then the next game, when the 3-6 New York Jets travel to Arizona to take on the 5-4 Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals are slight favorites in this game, 1-point favorites. I'm going to take Arizona here, -1, and Arizona straight up. Then the next game, in the Sunday night game, when the 7-1 Detroit Lions travel to Houston to take on the 6-3 Houston Texans. Detroit Lions are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me Detroit here, -3, and Detroit straight up. And finally, in the Monday night game, when the 2-6 Miami Dolphins travel to Los Angeles to take on the 4-4 Los Angeles Rams. The Los Angeles Rams are 2.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Los Angeles here, -2.5, and Los Angeles straight up. All right, it's time for my quick thoughts on each game. The Baltimore Ravens over the Cincinnati Bengals. This is a game to where, when you look at the Ravens and the Bengals, the Ravens have typically had Cincinnati's number. And look, Baltimore, here's the thing about Baltimore, which is so aggravating to me watching them. Baltimore is 5-3. And besides losing to the undefeated Chiefs, we should easily be a 7-1 football team. We lost to a 2-win Raider team and a 2-win Brown team. And it's annoying because it's where when you watch the Ravens with Derrick Henry running as effectively as he is. Zay Flowers having over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns in about a half. We pretty much ended the game when we double-dipped back-to-back touchdowns. Derrick Henry has pretty much is leading every statistical category for rushing. And the Ravens have one of these phenomenal offenses where we have a 900-yard rusher and a 2,000-plus yard pass with like 16 touchdowns. Lamar's probably having the most efficient year of his career. But it's where, at the end of the day, it's frustrating because why can't the Ravens consistently do this? I don't know why the Ravens can't consistently, play these games on consistent notes that give me the confidence to say, hey, the Ravens, could, be a, top team. And people still probably think we're one of the 5 best teams in the AFC. I just have significant concerns about our secondary moving forward. Fortunately for the Bengals, they beat the Raiders, and Joe Burrow played sensationally, and their defense held up to an extent, but they were playing Desmond Ridder and Gardner Minshew, who got benched again for the second time in his about 3 or 4 weeks because of turnovers. But I'm taking the Ravens here based on the run game, based on the consistency. Also, again, they won't have probably T. Higgins again, and they lost their tight end, Alt, who was doing pretty well. It wasn't like Gesicki, but he was turning into a nice quality second tight end, but he's now out for the year with an ACL injury. And I just feel like for the Bengals, every time the Bengals have to play a genuine opponent outside of New England, they played the Chiefs and lost, they played the Commanders, who are a contending team, and lost, they played the Eagles, a contending team, and they lost, and they played us once already, and even though that game was back and forth and pretty much came down to a missed kick by Evan McPherson earlier in the year, I just think the Ravens, with the talent they have and the consistency they have, should be able to hold on and win this game through very consistent ball-dominant offense, and the Ravens defense limiting Khalil Herbert and Chase Brown enough through their run defense to win the game. Should be a nail-biter. It's a division game, and the Bengals are essentially playing desperate from this point on. But I think with the Ravens here, the Ravens with their consistent running game, hopefully we're getting their secondary back healthier, and just overall momentum, I think the Ravens sweep the Bengals for another straight year, and the Ravens get to 6-3, heading up to a huge game in Pittsburgh in 2 weeks. So that's like Baltimore here, -6, and Baltimore straight up. The next game, the New York Giants over the Carolina Panthers. This is a game where I'm taking the Giants, better coach, better defense, and I trust Daniel Jones. And again, he didn't play bad. He finally threw a touchdown at MetLife Stadium for the first time under his new contract, which is very nice for Giants fans to see. And I just tend to believe that the Giants, if you watch both teams, even though the Panthers, again, they got their second win of the year. They felt a little confidence. Bryce Young, I believe, threw for about 165 yards and a touchdown, and he did lead a game-winning drive. The Panthers defense came up huge when it needed to. They did knock out Chris Olave, but you can blame Derek Carr for giving Chris Olave that high collision ball that gave him his second concussion this year, and I believe his third or fourth concussion throughout his career. But that's a different story for a different day. And with the international crowd, with these two teams, this is probably the weakest game that they have on the schedule between these two teams. In this game, I'm just going to go with the better coach, the better defense, and the quarterback I trust a little bit more. And I trust Daniel Jones to outplay Bryce Young if that's the case. If it's Andy Dalton, I still think Daniel Jones could outplay Andy Dalton because I think the Panthers have been that bad. But in a really cruddy toss-up game, you're going to go with the better defense and the better coach. And I think the little bit of a slightly better quarterback if it's Bryce Young. If it's Andy Dalton, I'm still going to take the Giants to win, but I definitely think the Panthers will have a better chance to win if Dalton starts. So that's why I like the New York Giants here straight up at Carolina +4.5. The next game, the Chicago Bears over the New England Patriots. Easy enough. The Chicago Bears have not played very well on the road. They are winless on the road. They have not been able to put up a lot of offense. They have put up 2 touchdowns in their last couple road games. I think they put up 3 in that one, and then they probably put up like 4 offensive touchdowns in the 4 road games they've been in. It hasn't been pretty. It's been awkward. But they're playing the Patriots, who, even though Drake May has shown some life, he has shown that he has been able to, still cause a lot of turnovers. I think losing Herbert was kind of, they traded him to Cincinnati. That was a great opportunity for Herbert to get a fresh start. But I love what this Bears defense has done. And if the Titans can pull out a win with the offense they have, led by Mason Rudolph, I think Caleb can definitely rebound and play a more consistent, kind of even game against another rookie quarterback from his draft class. And I think the Bears can grind one out with running and defense. Tony Pollard played real well for the Titans last Sunday against New England. I think DeAndre Swift and Roscoe Johnson can do very much the same thing. And I think the Pats secondary, even though it does have some talent on it, I just think the Bears have too many offensive weapons that are going to overwhelm the secondary and give the Bears a nice, comfortable win to get above 500. Maybe a little bit of optimism for maybe making the playoffs. So the ending of their schedule is incredibly brutal. It's one of the highest winning percentages out there for the rest of the league. But at least for the Bears, I think they do get this one with the home cooking and great defense, and trusting Caleb to make more plays, and to make Caleb to make more plays than Drake May will make mistakes. So should be an interesting game. But again, Bears home team. I've always seen to play better at home this year. Drake May, I think, will have a very difficult time against the Bears defense, and I think Caleb will make 1 or 2 throws. It'll be the difference in the game compared to Drake May. So that's all I like Chicago here, -6.5. Chicago straight up. The next game, the Buffalo Bills over the Indianapolis Colts. I am taking Buffalo here based on the Buffalo just finds ways to win. And shout out to Tyler Bass, a 61-yard field goal at the end of the game, the longest field goal of his career. And I love how their offense was playing. Josh Allen got picked off for the second straight game, but that was an incredible play by Jalen Ramsey to take out of Keon Coleman's hands. They were able to run it really well. They were able to generate consistent offensive drives through James Cook and Josh Allen running. And I think the Colts, look, they have been competitive. They have been scrappy. And I will say this. I think it's unfair for Joe Flacco to take as much heat as he has been taking. I understand that, he had been officially named the full-time starter, and the Colts ended up responding by not even scoring an offensive touchdown. They scored a defensive fumble touchdown, which got them the 13-21 score at the end. But I do think, again, Brian Flores has been able to make a lot of quarterbacks look bad this year. The only two quarterbacks that have had any confident or consistent solid games have been Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford, who are two of the better quarterbacks in the league. So I think for Joe to have as tough a game as he did, it wasn't great. It's definitely not a great contrast to see what happens when you put Joe Flacco in with the full-time starter perspective. But I think for the Bills, with how they've been playing, with how they've been running, with how the Vikings were able to, with the weapons they had, make some consistent plays through the air. I think Josh Allen's a better athlete, which will cause some problems for the Colts pass rush to contain or be able to maneuver and not give up big explosive plays. And I just trust the Bills as a mentality and consistency compared to the Colts, who have good talent around, and you can see that they've drafted some quality players, but there's really not a big player maybe outside of Jonathan Taylor and Quinn Nelson that really makes you think the Colts have any explosive, big, significant players on the roster. And again, I just think when you look at the Colts, they are a good competitive team. They're gonna make you earn a lot of the games. I think they said they were the first team in NFL history to have their first 9 games decided by one score, which is insane, or by 6 points. If they have 9 straight games now by a 1-score margin due to the 21-13 win and loss. But I think it's going to be an interesting moment for the Bills to kind of roll on before they have their big moment against the Kansas City Chiefs in probably the game of the year for the AFC. This is going to be the first time I believe the Chiefs will actually have a genuine test, and I will tell you, I am possibly thinking, I still have to wait to see how this week goes, of taking the Buffalo Bills to beat the Kansas City Chiefs in Buffalo due to how the Chiefs have been playing, and I just trust, I like where the Bills are headed mentally and play-wise, maybe than what I've seen out of the Chiefs. But that's all. Like Buffalo here, -4, and Buffalo straight up. The next game, the Kansas City Chiefs over the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos, when I took them +9.5, they just got absolutely steamrolled early on. The best chance I had was when it was 10-7, and then after that, the Ravens just went on to proceed to Lamar Jackson had a perfect passer rating. Zay Flower had 100+ yards, 2 touchdowns. Henry ran for 100 yards, and by the middle of the third quarter, the game was over because we were already up. We went from a 17-10 game to a 38-10 game by the middle of the third quarter, and there was really no point in trying to play afterward. And again, I think with the Chiefs, they do have to worry about Patrick Mahomes' ankle. He did injure his ankle in the game last night, so I think that is something to monitor. And I would say this is going to be one of my hot takes, and I do not like saying this take, but I do think it is fair to acknowledge. I believe that the Kansas City Chiefs, after this week and after next week, if Mahomes can play and they clear him, I think the Kansas City Chiefs, if they beat the Bills and they beat the Broncos, they beat the Broncos and they beat the Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs should seriously consider letting Patrick Mahomes essentially load manage 2 games against the Panthers and the Raiders, and let Carson Wentz win those games to get to 12-0 and give him 2 weeks rest in order for the big game against I think the Chargers come up after that. So now, then he can kind of get prepared maybe to possibly finish the undefeated regular season, something that will only be done for the 3rd time in NFL history. I'm going to take Denver here +9.5 because it's a division game, and I think Denver will play better against their division rival. And also, I just think Tampa Bay had a 9-point spread, and that game essentially came down to overtime, which was huge and great, for me, taking with the 9.5-point spread. So that's what I'm going to trust. If Denver does that again, if they play anybody sensible, or once they play Kansas City again, I'm going to take them, no matter how big the margin is, to win, because I just cannot trust Denver to hold on to cover at least that big of a spread, and that'll be 2 times in a row. I'm not going to get burned a 3rd time the Broncos can't cover a 9.5-point spread. Though I do want to shout out Patrick Mahomes, though. About 75% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Definitely the best offensive game he's had all year. Kareem Hunt's had 5 straight games of 10+ carries, 50+ yards, and a touchdown. So he's turning out really well. And Isaiah Pacheco should be able to be activated by the end of the month, which will be a huge boost to that running game. If they can get Hollywood Brown back, along with Juju Smith-Schuster, this Chiefs team will be gaining talents and weapons to move in the right direction. So that's all I can say here straight up, but Denver plus 9.5. The next game, the Atlanta Falcons over the New Orleans Saints. I'm taking Atlanta here based on the fact that the New Orleans Saints are a train wreck right now. They are spiraling. They are going downhill. And I think the Saints, they just traded Marshawn Lattimore and a 5th-round pick to the Commanders for a 6, a 3, and a 4. So essentially they just traded him for a 3rd and a 4th-round pick, which I think is probably fair compensation for what he could do for a team and, how he's been playing. He's also hurt, so he's not playing. But you're telling me that same team, they just lost their best corner, their offensive line. The Chris Olave's probably going to be out again, so they're going to be down 2 receivers. Bub Means is on the IR. This team is just banged up to crap. It's banged up in the New Orleans voodoo down in Louisiana. And even though I thought the Saints, who were 2-0 and looked phenomenal, this Saints disaster, it finally looks like the Saints are maybe going to finally realize at the end of this year they need to just rip. They need to go. They need to hit the nuclear option on the franchise and basically get rid of everybody out there that's not on a rookie deal or Alvin Kamara, who they just paid, and move on. And I think for the Falcons, they have played consistent football. Kirk Cousins is definitely playing the Kirk Cousins brand of football that everybody knows that he can play really well. I just think the problem for a lot of Falcons fans, or a lot of people that are Kirk Cousins skeptics, including myself a bit, is this is what he can do. Kirk Cousins is a very good, consistent, regular season quarterback. But the problem is it's always when you ask him in a big spot if he can do something, and it's most of the time he can't. Should the Falcons win the NFC South? Yes, because I don't think, even if the Bucs with their remaining schedule go on a 6 out of 7 or 7-game run to win to make a wild card spot, I think the Falcons are not going to drop that many games from there to the end of the year, which should give the Falcons the South Division easily and handily, in my opinion. So that's all I could land here, -3 and Atlanta straight up. The next game, the San Francisco 49ers over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This game to me is very much like Kansas City, to where I think Tampa Bay, what they have shown you over the last 2 or 3 weeks, is that they are a feisty, competitive team. I just think the problem for the Bucs is the injuries are just too overwhelming. And I think getting Christian McCaffrey back, because he is expected to be active this weekend against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that should be enough to win the game. I just think when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the way they played, Baker's played very well outside of the turnovers last few weeks, though he didn't turn it over last night. I think Tampa can definitely hang around, especially with the defensive line, and with how Baker's been playing, even with the 3rd to 5th string receivers being the most dominant receivers besides Kate Otten. But at the end of the day, if you're telling me Christian McCaffrey comes back to this offense, even through all the turmoil of Debo and all the injuries, without Brandon Ayuk, they should be able to win this game based on relying heavily on a running attack and good play action to set Brock Purdy up for some great, consistent mid-range to deep balls that should be able to win in the game. So, but that's why I like Tampa Bay here, plus 6.5, but San Francisco straight up. The next game, the Pittsburgh Steelers over the Washington Commanders. This one is fairly easy. I'm taking the Pittsburgh Steelers, better defense. I think the Washington Commanders have a chance to win this game. I think the Commanders have been one of the great surprise stories of the year, and they are at least going to be a playoff team in my opinion. They still could win the NFC East. I think the game against Philadelphia will be a huge indicator for that, if they can definitively win the division or not. But I'm taking Pittsburgh here solely based off the better defense. Washington has played, pretty good football, but their defense consistently at times has been not up to par against some of the more elite offenses. Russell Wilson has this offense humming very well with running, play action passing, deep balls to George Pickens, and getting Calvin Austin involved. And I just trust that. I think the Washington Commanders are going to have to score at least 26 points to win this game. I think this Pittsburgh defense, which hasn't given up, I think, more than 27 all year, I think they hold the Commanders under to that offense. And I think the Steelers, with Russ and that running game, should be able to grind out a tough game at the Commander Stadium in the biggest game of the weekend, in my opinion. So that's why I like Pittsburgh here, plus 2.5, and Pittsburgh straight up. The next game, the Minnesota Vikings over the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm taking Minnesota here. Jacksonville, even though they've been competitive, and yeah, Jacksonville, I thought Philadelphia got hosed through a ref call. Jacksonville, though, is just still too much depleted for me. That Viking defense has been sensational. They added their former tackle, who gets to play his former team once again, just for, after a couple weeks ago being on that team, getting traded to the team he's playing now. I think they'll be able to run the ball effectively with Jones, and I just think Sam Darnold out on the Florida Sun against a really cruddy team should be able to grind out and get another solid win over a Jags team that should be selling more, but I feel like the Jags are done selling the pieces off to at least better teams to give them a shot. So that's why I like Minnesota here, -4, Minnesota straight up. The next game, the Los Angeles Chargers over the Tennessee Titans. The Titans are one of the worst teams in football. The Los Angeles Chargers have been absolutely dominant. Jesse Minter's been dominating with defenses throughout. And I just think if Will Levis is playing, which I think I expect him to, the Los Angeles Chargers should be able to steamroll with their running game and their pass game against the Titans team that I would argue is the second worst team in the entire league outside of New England based on how they played. So this game really shouldn't be that competitive. I think the Chargers should be able to comfortably coast to a ground and pound, deep play action, Jim Harbaugh type game to get them to 6-3 and at least a respectable team in the conference throughout, the first half of the season. I think, could the Titans have a chance? Sure. Their pass defense is really good. They have one of the better defenses led by Denard Wilson. But I just think with the Chargers offense, of all the weapons they had and the confidence they're building, I think Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers just steamroll the Titans to get to the next game against the... I'm trying to remember who they play. But yeah, so that's all I got. Los Angeles Chargers here, -7.5, and Los Angeles Chargers straight up. The next game, the Philadelphia Eagles over the Dallas Cowboys. No Dak, no win. Simple as that. Cooper Rush is 5-1 as a starter, but the one loss that Cooper Rush did have as a starter was against the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think that even if A.J. Brown plays or not, I don't think that's how you beat the Dallas Cowboys. You have to run it down their throat consistently. And I think Jalen, with the weapons he has, if Dallas Goedert can come back, should make some nice, big, consistent, mid-range to deep play-action throws, which you get the Eagles a very quick and comfortable win in Jerry's place with the Cowboys season basically being over. So that's like Philadelphia -7.5, Philadelphia straight up. The next game, the Arizona Cardinals over the New York Jets. This is a game to where I believe the Cardinals are just slightly a bit of a better team. Could the Jets win the game? Sure. They have some confidence. Garrett Wilson made the catch of the year. I don't think it's the play of the year. I think the play of the year is basically Saquon Barkley's reverse hurdle over a Jaguars defender, which is still insane he was able to pull that off. But I'm looking at the Jets-Cardinals here. I think the Cardinals have been more consistent on defense. They have a very good pass rusher. They just added a pass rusher from Denver. They added Baron Browning, which will be a very nice addition to help boost their pass rush. I'm going to say bolster their pass rush. And I just think, again, the Cardinals and Jets, I saw enough out of the Jets to maybe, they can be competitive. And if they win this game, there is a path to where the Jets can maybe right themselves their way. But they just traded Mike Williams to the Steelers, which is a nice addition. But I don't think the Jets are that mad about it. But I just feel like with the Jets in this game, I think going to Arizona in that desert heat with the confidence the Cardinals have, I think the Cardinals get this impressive, grindy 1-point win to keep the first place hold for the Arizona Cardinals in the NFC West. So that's like Arizona here -1 and Arizona straight up. Then the final two games, the Detroit Lions of the Houston Texans. Detroit's the best team in the NFC. Houston, they have too many offensive line injuries. Will Anderson has a defensive injury to his ankle. And I just look at this Houston Texans team and go, if you can pressure them, and they lost Cavante Green to a leg injury that's going to knock him out for the rest of the year. C.J. Stroud, under pressure, has played absolutely horrific. I think the Lions know exactly the formula. They just need to consistently pressure C.J. Stroud to make consistent overthrows, underthrows, or mistakes. And I think with the Lions, with the confidence they had, they should be able to run the ball effectively against a very consistent and stout Texan defense led by D'Amico. But I think the Lions easily grind out this win due to their coach, their running, and their consistent pregame confidence and message. So that's like Detroit here -3 and Detroit straight up. And lastly, the Los Angeles Rams over the Miami Dolphins. The Rams are probably the scariest team in the NFC that are not in the playoffs right now. I think the Rams are going up against a Dolphins team that finally showed some life. They played probably their most complete game, especially offensively. But at the end of the day, it came down to they couldn't get the stop when they needed to. And Tyler Bass made a game-winning field goal. I don't know if Joshua Harty, the Rams kicker, can be able to do the same thing. But I think the Rams, McVay knows that system. He knows how to effectively run it. I think Puka should be back after that weird altercation where he punched a fan. Not like Joel, who kind of shoved, or not like Joel Embiid, but that's a different story for a different day on a different topic. But I'm taking the Rams here in this game based off better running game, being at home, even though Dolphin fans will travel out to LA, support their team. And I just think, again, the Rams, when they need a big play over the last few weeks, Stafford's been able to make throws or make runs or make decisions that win some games. I feel like for Miami, they just don't know who they are. And I feel like they're going to keep losing and keep digging themselves in further holes to where, yeah, the Dolphins' offense looks significantly better under Tua. he showed that yesterday, but he also kind of showed that I think the Dolphins are just a bad football team. And if you're telling me right now, if I could have Sean McVay or Mike McDaniel coaching in a big spot with the game on the line, I'll take the Rams every day and twice on Sunday. In a very interesting competitive game based on how both teams are and what level of desperation or consistency both teams are trying to achieve. So that's like the Los Angeles Rams here, -2.5, and Los Angeles Rams straight up. But those are my picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, and subscribe. And check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page. There are a lot of great prognosticators. They make predictions like I do every single week. And that is it. So until Monday, Veterans Day, good luck to all players, coaches, teams, fellow prognosticators, and fantasy football players around the world, and free and to pay leagues. I'm doing well in my free leagues. I'm not doing well in my PTP leagues. But hopefully I can bounce back with a second half surge for both. But until next time, everyone, until Veterans Day, this is Matthew Fanatic signing off. Until then, everyone, so long.